Yeah, my name is John Sullivan. I actually used to be a developer and an Outsystems customer for a number of years before I discovered the platform, developed on it full time, and really fell in love with it. I think it's the way of the future, and that's why I came to work here about 2.5 years ago. So my goal today is just to tell you a little bit more about low-code software in general, Outsystems, some specifics, and some people have some different preconceived notions about low-code software and that it builds simple apps and quick little small apps. But we have some pretty unique implementations, pretty deep and complex implementations, and I think it highlights the cybersecurity talk track today and how secure they are. And that's what I wanted to share with you today, just to give you a little background. So OutSystems' goal is to help make software development easier for every organization. And as you guys probably already know, app development is hard in general. Software development is hard. The apps that your customers, your users are requiring these days are increasingly more complex. They require a lot of different talent, a lot of different types of personas to maintain the database, the front end, the back end, network infrastructure, security, and talent's hard to come by these days for sure. And it really results in an explosive app backlog. So being able to keep up on those old legacy applications that need to be modernized, keeping up with tomorrow's demand and today's demand with all the developers that you have, I'm sure you can relate is a bit of a struggle. And we actually surveyed a lot of your peers in this regard. You can visit this report at stoptechdebt.com. We were trying to really uncover the biggest drivers of technical debt. And technical debt is the coding that you have to do today based off your decisions you made last year or prior time frame. And a lot of developers, a lot of organizations understand that there's a lot of frameworks that you have to learn. There's new development frameworks and languages coming out every day that you want to be on the cusp of innovation and adhere to, but you also have to maintain what you're currently working on and modernize what you have maybe in the past as well. And so I can definitely relate to that. And that's one of the top pain drivers of technical debt, in that there's so many development frameworks and languages out there. And when you do have those key developers or those key knowledge areas that know how to run those old applications, they might leave or they go away, and that's really hard to recover from if you're a smaller business in that talent and that thought that knew how to run those old applications. Those minds go away, and that can be a challenge to adhere to future releases. So check out more of this report at stoptechdebt.com. But really, there's so many organizations that are too busy to look for other options and look for other solutions. They're not sure of another way. They're not sure what really low code is. And they would just think that if they grind harder and faster, they'll catch up on that. And it's not really always possible. And so looking at the top tech companies out there, they have amazing customer experience, fast agility, modern architecture, and top talent, but low code brings that back to all organizations, kind of starting from the back. You can use the skills that you have. So you don't have to be a core JavaScript programmer, a core C# or core any one language. If you have a programming background, we've seen senior COBOL developers that are maybe ready to retire and whatnot come into the platform and be effective. Junior developers just out of college can be effective, and business analysts even, because there's so many different performance, scalability warnings, architecture warnings in the platform and in low-code platforms. And I'll talk more about that in a minute, but you can use the tech that you have, the talent that you have. And then it's always going to be built on the most modern architecture. So Outsystems right now, we compile your visual drag and drop code into a .NET backend, a React front end, native iOS and Android apps, all working together nicely. But that has changed in the past, and it will change in the future. That modern architecture is always going to be out there for you. So you're really future-proofed, and it eliminates those top two pain points I mentioned of that developer turnover. It's easy to understand code that's written in a low-code platform, and also you're future-proofed. What you write today isn't going to immediately become old next year and the year after, because it's going to be compiled to the technology of tomorrow. And then it brings a seamless omni-channel experience in a lot of ways between not just your web devices, but your other IoT devices. Your mobile and web applications can work seamlessly across native platforms. And Gartner is hooked onto this theory too. They believe that 65% of all software development will include low code by 2024 as well. That's definitely something we agree with. And it starts sometimes in these smaller applications. Businesses know that they need to build an employee portal or employee directory of some sort. And then it grows from there. Once you're connecting into their Active Directory portals, you're connecting into some of these core systems, you now have library layers of low code applications that are easier to access when you want to go to that next stage of project for your customer portals or your customer mobile apps. And just building onto that can create really deep and complex core experiences and drive into larger core systems. So we've had customers rewrite ERPs and even just healthcare engineering platforms. I'll talk more about some complex stories that we have, but it really spans the globe from small applications to really complex mission critical applications as well. But keep in mind, not all low code is the same. If you go from this spectrum really of just standard off the shelf apps to more unique, more complex software development needs, you definitely have your off the shelf products for CRM like Salesforce, ERPs out there, even business process management that you can start hooking up to right away and gain some access to and gain some success with. And then there's the first layer I'd say of low code on top of that is where you can customize Salesforce forms. You can customize some reports. You can customize portions of the Microsoft Power system to really do what you need. But they're kind of pre-thought of tools that expect you to go in a certain finite number of directions. There's also what we call no code for citizen developers. So this requires really no development experience, or not much anyway. And again, has a finite limited set of rules that you can kind of tweak and toggle to turn on different application types of features. Then there's the low code for citizen developers and enterprise developers. That gives a lot more power to developer minded individuals instead of citizen developers or business analysts. So those are things like Power Apps, WaveMaker, Mendix as well. They give you a lot more power to handle more complex apps. And everything above that really boils down to traditional code. So pro developers need to develop those more unique and complex applications that are out there. And Outsystems tries to cover kind of that middle area from the bottom to the top of high performance low code, where citizen developers and business analysts can be successful. Sometimes they're changing some of the logic that you don't want to go to IT for, change an if statement, change a condition, change a parameter that you don't want to wait weeks for IT to fix. You can allow governance to get in there, governance of business analyst users and technical users that you trust that are just technical enough to make some changes and save IT money. But then also on the other spectrum, deep developers that are hardcore .NET developers of whatever language, they can be successful in the platform because it follows traditional programming paradigms as well. For loops, ifs, you can write custom SQL, event-based, screen life cycles, all that is handled in the platform as well. So a few quick case studies just to talk about some of the successes we've had. And I'd say this is a more complicated example in that we helped with TAP Portugal. That's Portugal's largest airline. They have a leading carrier to Africa and South America from Europe in a lot of ways, 10,000 employees. They came to us with really a problem of so many different types of inputs to their flight operation officers. They were monitoring email, phone, ground communication with aircraft and whatnot. And there was a lot of thought put into how do we get these aircrafts on schedule and on-time departures. And that was a huge challenge for them at that time. So they came to us and built a solution called their Flight Dispatch Control Center. So it controls all the flights going in and out of their control centers that they manage. It's a completely new digital experience with different integrations, reporting, dashboard, like I mentioned, and is deployed in 11 months for streamlined takeoff procedures. So they have updated flight plans that are immediately synced with air traffic control, updated for a variety of types of events. They can make faster decisions, and it's all centralized into one control center for aircraft operations, which is kind of a cool story. Schneider Electric's another company that's utilized Outsystems globally, and they really bought in sending 150 developers to be trained on Outsystems. They've produced 60 apps in 20 months, and they really understand the factory that you can churn out apps of all sorts across the globe. So they already are having all sorts of ROI metrics on development hours saved, days of work saved, safety hazard savings, and whatnot. And a quote from their director of digital really is, I think, a key of low code. It is a catalyst to bridge the gap between demands and IT resources. And so that's really, I think, the heart of low code. There's so much demand out there. There's so little IT resources. We want to help bridge that gap. And that's what you can find in low code platforms or low code software out there. The last example I'll use is thinkmoney. So they had a large core banking system. They were in the middle of a 2-year project, kind of a waterfall approach to create an online experience for their customers. Halfway into it, they already had changed requirements. The end users needed different requirements. Requirements change, as you already know, through specific projects. They scrapped the whole project and rebuilt everything in Outsystems in 3.5 months. So that includes integrations with their core backend banking platforms, several native features, and they have millions of banking users utilizing this across the globe as well. So that's a nice example just on the secure side of banking. We work with banks and governments, financial institutions across the globe to keep things secure. And diving into the security aspects, we have built-in enterprise-grade security. So your ISO compliance, PCI, SOC 2, Type 2. We have all kinds of information available that I can share in a PDF. You'll get links to this document, this slide share. And then we also have a website, outsystems.com/security, that goes deeper into all the security offerings that we have. But each cloud customer has a dedicated VPC, PII data protection, dedicated CCERT team for response protocols and always monitoring and troubleshooting issues. We adhere to the the OWASP threats as well. And it really starts from those developers. So I mentioned different types of developers can come in and start being, start understanding the platform, start being developers of some sort with governance. And we want to give them warnings and best practices as they're developing. So in real time, as they're developing something on this retail application, for example, we're going to highlight and ensure your expression is correctly encoded or sanitized in HTML injection. You're vulnerable to JavaScript injection or SQL injection. You're going to get these real-time updates as you're developing if you happen to go across an area that could be vulnerable. So all types of developers are notified of that as they're developing, and that's called our true change control. That's giving you instant real-time feedback of all the different types of workings and bug checking and performance analysis in real time. As your code is compiled, it's generated by a secure centralized service as well. So that keeps track of all the migration scripts and logging and monitoring. You can hook up to automated testing on the platform, as well as use external tools. We even have an architecture dashboard that helps with application governance in one spot to understand all the connections, how everything is controlled, what apps are consuming other apps, and it helps with the reusability I mentioned earlier, but also security and understanding how everything flows as well. And then you can use all sorts of external tools, like previously mentioned, load tests, pen tests, static code analysis, all the things that you'd expect out of a traditional large enterprise application. And your apps are secure in general too. So integrating with single sign-on, I mentioned the OWASP protocols. We have application isolation as well, SSL encryption, integrating with Active Directory and other network security. And really all of the instrumentation of all events are stored into a centralized monitoring and auditing console. So you'll be able to see that. You can have a dedicated team that's adhere to that to look at the backend dashboards and logging tools and monitoring built into the platform, and get the same sorts of events that you would see in other types of software like this. So that tells you a little bit about what you can get out of Outsystems. I just wanted to dive into what Outsystems is in general as well. And really, Outsystems, we aim to be everything that you need to develop software faster and easier. And that includes a full stack, full lifecycle platform. You don't have to have other services. Obviously, businesses will have other databases, APIs, other apps to connect to. But if you were just starting up today with a new business and you needed to grow to millions of users, everything you would need is in the Outsystems platform by default. And so diving a bit deeper into that, it's full stack in nature. This is our IDE where you drag and drop widgets and templates. Those are pre-built components to hook up to different logic and events. So you can control even custom JavaScript and custom HTML and CSS to control the front ends. Hook that up to lightweight processes, BPM layers, approval processes and routing and whatnot, and then hook that up to any sort of data source. An Outsystems database, your own database external through a native SQL connection, other cloud databases, NoSQL databases, any types of databases you can connect to as well. And when we talk about the front end and serious apps, I always like to show this application. It's a call center for an insurance organization where we track the call in real time. A dispatcher can look over the shoulder and see speech to text analysis using Azure cognitive tools. We have sentiment analysis as well, built in to understand the worried sentiment of the caller. And it gives you a lot of different information and recommendations in real time. And so not everyone thinks that low code can produce a software or a tool such as this that integrates in real time with claims management systems and policies and underwriting. But that's definitely something that we're proud of and able to connect to. You also can control custom UI. Every pixel is editable to not only create templates to get you started fast, but give you unlimited control of the user experience and interface. You can also integrate and extend it. We have a ton of different pre-connected modules for you to things like SAP and Salesforce. Anything that we don't have by default isn't available on our marketplace. We have over 4,000 components there that are free. They're Outsystems apps, they're sample connectors. A third of them are supported by Outsystems. The 2/3 are community supported for all sorts of new and different things. I know we're going to have AWS talking in a bit. We have a lot of AWS connectors in there to many different types of services that you can hook up to very fast as well. And then it's full life cycle. So once you build your apps, you can deploy and even hook into custom DevOps processes if you don't want to use our standard one. If you want Azure DevOps, Jenkins, and whatnot, continuous integration and deployment processes can be utilized through APIs or using our standard processes. We have monitoring and governance, as I mentioned before, for all types of users, your end users and your developer users. And it really gives you the widest range of experiences and touch points for different types of use cases. So logistics, barcode scanning, mobile device, offline storage, to just more complex enterprise web applications with unlimited security for banks and governments as well. We'd be happy to talk a little bit deeper about that. The Magic Quadrant from Gartner, the Forrester Wave definitely is a good place to look for low-code platforms if you're not used to looking for them there just yet. That will give you a little bit more expertise and insights. They have full write-ups. We can give you the links to some of those as well. But also customer word of mouth is something that's huge too. Developers really adhere to Outsystems, but that's something to keep in mind as you look at reviews of customers and their experience working in a platform like that. How do they feel? How do all types of developers in the spectrum feel about getting into a system? Because it's definitely something I, as a former developer, was skeptical of when I first looked at, but understanding that it's not going to box you in, you're not going to have walls, and you can integrate custom code as needed, really gives you unlimited opportunity. So that's it for me. I just wanted to talk about innovating with low code, give you kind of a taste of that, how Outsystems is a little different, but feel free to email me, john.sullivan@outsystems.com, for any type of low code talk, Outsystems or otherwise, development in general, or even try our free version. You can download our IDE, get a free provisioned cloud at try.outsystems.com as well.